Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to our webinar. This is brought to you by PAPSI, Philippine Association of Physics and Science Instructors. Please kindly bear with us if there will be some technical difficulties, but we will do our best to make things work. I encourage you to like and share this FB Live. We are familiar with this line, sharing is caring. So share this post so that more teachers, especially science teachers, will be able to watch this. Okay? You can also use the following hashtag. Hashtag Salamat PAPSI, hashtag TeachKnowledge, and hashtag Virtual Educators. Allow me to introduce to you our PAPSI convener, Dr. Gil Nonato Santos, to give us an opening remarks.
Good morning, PAPSI members. Confused by remote learning, uncertain, anxious, worried, stressed, unclear what next school year will bring? For many of us teachers, the answer to all of this is yes. I am guessing that many of you are experiencing this as well. What does this mean for you? Learning online can be challenging in general, and especially if it is new to you. But there are positive and many strategies and resources to help you learn well online. Teachers will vary in how they approach remote teaching, our term for delivering classes over the web. There may be delays. While many of you have not taken online classes, many faculty have not taught online either. This makes remote learning even tougher. PAPSI's commitment is motivated to assist you to get your subjects online even if you have never taught online before. How can you best prepare? Get techie. If you have never taken a class online before, take the time to get familiar with how it works. Attend to your mental and physical health. By now you know to keep your distance. Wash your hands often and not touch your face. But social distancing is a poor choice of term. Talk to, text, and message your friends and family. Keep in touch. Reconnect. Social support is one of the best psychological predictors of health. Reach out if you need help. PAPSI is ready to assist you. Good morning, and I wish you that you will be able to learn something for today's webinar. Good morning, PAPSI.
Thank you, Dr. Santos, for that inspiring message. It's true that we really need to be techy nowadays for us to become an effective teacher. I know that you are all excited for our topic. understanding nature of science at the comfort of your home. So please stay tuned. Aside from the concepts that will be presented, the speaker will also introduce various examples, which I believe will be helpful to us teachers. So to those who registered, you will receive a certificate of participation, copy of this speaker's module, and copy of this video. All right, are you ready? Let me now turn this screen to our guest speaker, Dr. Ara Hitaneg Daniel.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm hoping that everyone is okay. And I'm so excited to share this with you, understanding nature of science at the comfort of your home, and also understanding nature of science at the comfort of our students' homes. But let me share a short background about me. I'm Ara Kitaneg Abanyel. I graduated from Philippine Normal University, BS Physics for Teachers. I graduated from De La Salle University, MS Physics, and also graduated at De La Salle University in Doctor of Philosophy in Science Education with a specialization in physics. Now, my teaching experiences are the following. Medyo marami po. We have here. My first year of teaching was at Lourdes School of Quezon City, where I was able to handle junior high school students. Then I had this experience at De La Salle University, at De La Salle College of St. Benilde, St. Scholastica's College, and University of Santo Tomas, where I handled college students, and also Zambales National High School, where I was able to handle senior high school. And currently, I'm with President Ramon Magsaysay State University here at Zambales, where I teach both senior high school and college students. Now, I think I can share with you some techniques, and also we can share kahit elementary pa po yung hawak nyo, pwede ring junior high school, senior high school, or even college students. So let's start. Here is the outline of my presentation. We have first the nature of science. Then how do we teach nature of science in the new normal? Inquiry learning, open inquiry at home, online learning resources supporting inquiry approach. Tanggalin ko lang muna po yung aking video. But what is the nature of science? Okay, let's take a look at the nature of science in the next slides. Science is based on observations and inferences about the natural world. So we can say that science is empirical. It's always based on our observations, and we can make inferences out of doing experiments. Science is also considered to be creative human endeavor that is socially embedded because we always connect our society with science. Another discussion on the nature of science is this one. It's considered to be a body of knowledge where we discuss facts, definitions, concepts, theories, and laws. But for now, we can say that the body of knowledge can be found everywhere. So isang click lang po natin sa Google, sa internet, we can find the answers. So I think the focus of science instruction now is not just merely on the knowledge or on the body of knowledge, but we have to have this or our students to learn about the processes, to learn about the methods. So another definition of the nature of science is this. It is considered to have a set of methods and processes where we have observing, measuring, we estimate, we infer, we predict, our students classify, they also hypothesize, they do experiments, and of course, they will conclude. So where do they get that experience? In our face-to-face classroom. So usually po ang experience na yan when we are doing experiments. Okay, so in that way, they can actually feel or they can experience the nature of science. But how can we do that kung wala po tayong face-to-face interaction ngayon? Another nature of science that I would like to share with you is that it's also a way of knowing. Scientific knowledge is based upon evidence, so the students have to see what they are trying to figure out. They have to experience the experiments. Scientific knowledge can also change over time. It is not absolute. That's why our students should learn how to adapt. Paano nila ma-update po yung alam nila in science. And creativity also play an important role in science. We allow our students to be creative in doing their experiments, in doing their projects. And also background knowledge influences how scientists view data. So that is the nature of science. Now the challenge now is we were teaching our students how to gain scientific knowledge. We were teaching them, particularly in physics, to know how to solve problems. But we have to move from that. Of course, it's their part, but we also have to help them learn how to know the process or know the process of knowing. And also, they have to experience the process of science. How do we teach the nature of science in the new normal? Yes, we can do the lectures, pwede rin tayo pong quizzes tulad na tinuro sa atin sa Google Classroom. But how do we let them experience in their own homes? Yeah, and we have to have a gear shift for me to a more innovative teaching and learning. If you can see in the figure, ito po is a very classical illustration of teaching and learning. But still, we are still experiencing that bago pa man magkaroon ng lockdown, bago pa man po magkaroon ng ECQ. We are trying to shift to innovative teaching and learning by using technology. But I guess at this time, kailangan po it should be a more innovative teaching and learning. So let's take a look at the shifts in the learning. We have here from teachthought.com, the 7 most powerful idea shifts in learning today. Number 1, from physical to digital. So yan po we are actually forced to do it right now dahil hindi tayo pwedeng magkaroon muna ng face-to-face class. So that's from physical to digital. And then number 2, from standards to habits. The shift from purely academic standards to critical thinking habits supports personalized 21st century learning. So, dati po yung mga estudyante natin, they are doing it for compliance, para po siguro makapasa. Some are doing it para mataas yung grade. Pero this time, what we want to develop in them is the habits of knowing, the habits of discovering science on their own. The next, from compliance to play. Nga po, nabanggit ko, they just wanted to comply. Pero we should allow them to play, to have fun while learning. Then next one, number 4, we have from schools to communities. As I have mentioned kanina po, there should always be a connection between how we educate our students or what we educate, what do we teach our students, and also what the community needs. So yun po ang isa pang mahalaga, from schools to communities. Number 5, from reaction to interaction. We can use game-based learning because it aggregates the power of learning. We can use simulations. We can have social gaming. Then we can use online resources. Number 6, from isolation to connectivism. Katulad po ng nabanggit ni Dr. Santos kanina, hindi maganda daw gamitin natin yung social distancing. We should still be connected. So we can connect with our students through social media, through mobile learning, through blended learning. So marami pong ways so that we can still be connected with our students. Number 7, from privacy to transparency. A natural consequence of digital and social media is transparency. Katulad po ngayon, we are all learning, and then nakikita nyo ang ating strategies in doing webinars. Okay? So those are the different ideas on the shift in learning. Ito po, in 21st century, we are encouraging collaborative learning. But siguro hindi pa po natin naabot itong stage na to, na talagang students are always doing their works collaboratively. Then, may bago na rin po tayong challenge. The chance now is that our students should be able to study at home. Maybe they can do experiments at home. And also, their parents will help them in learning. We are expecting that sa ating mga parents. Here are some examples. And po, tingnan natin doon sa unang illustration. We have here the learn with play at home. Siguro mga 3 years old pa lang po to, who is doing experiment in science. And I would like to share with you my yung anak ko po. Yan, she has her ng experiments so that she can learn how to love science and she can experience science kahit 5 years old pa lang siya. And then, ito pong isa pang illustration na to, siguro this girl is actually investigating sa biology naman. So that's what we are trying to expect. Then take note, it is always pedagogy before technology. We have to consider how to use technology for an effective teaching and learning. Hindi lang po basta-basta technology. Hindi lang pag nilagay natin online yung lecture natin is okay. Yung assessments natin pag online is okay. But we have to know what is the learning strategy appropriate so that our learners will really effectively learn about the knowledge or learn about science concepts. And they should be able to learn on their own. Ayan po, tandaan natin, pedagogy before technology. The technology, of course, will help us or will assist us in performing a particular learning or teaching strategy. And next, we have inquiry approach. Paano nga po ba natin maipapa-experience sa kanila ang nature of science? Now, we have this approach in teaching and learning, which is an inquiry-based approach. It is considered to be a central strategy for teaching science. And it allows students to experience the nature of science. How do we sum up the concept of inquiry approach? So ito lang po yung concepts ng inquiry natin. We have the questioning, the investigating, and of course, the finding answers. Are we doing it already in the classroom? I think we are already doing it. Sige po, pa-heart na lang or pa-light if you are already doing it in the classroom. Questioning, investigating, and finding answers. Okay? Now, it actually has rooted from constructivist approach, where knowledge is not just transmitted directly by the teacher to the students, but the students should be able to develop the concept based on their prior knowledge and also observations or investigations. So matagal na po talaga itong inquiry approach that they can construct their own knowledge. Students are considered to be active learners and not just passive learners. Pero ginagawa na po kaya talaga natin yung lahat ng inquiry approaches. Okay? We'll see. And is it really appropriate at this time na hindi pa tayo makakaroon ng face-to-face classroom or face-to-face experiments? Okay, next. Another is the National Science Education Standards provided 8 aspects in the definition of inquiry. Yun nga po, you should be able to identify the questions, or the students should be able to identify the questions. They should be able to design and conduct investigations. They should use appropriate tools and techniques. They should develop descriptions, explanations. They should be able to predict. They can even come up with models using evidences. Other aspects are the following we have. They should be able to think critically and logically to make the relationships between evidence or evidences and explanations. Kailangan din i-recognize and analyze nila ang alternative explanations and predictions. Because syempre, when you're doing experiment, pwedeng sometimes something wrong might happen. So yan, they should be able to come up with alternative explanations and predictions. They should also be able to communicate scientific procedures and explanations. And they should use mathematics in all aspects of scientific inquiry. Maybe in using or analyzing the variables and how they are related to one another. So ano nga po ba ang different forms of inquiry approach? Marami po yan. The first one is we have the structured inquiry. The second one is guided inquiry. Then the third one is open inquiry. Let's go to a structured inquiry. When we say structured inquiry, yan po yung nagbibigay tayo sa kanila ng objectives. We also give them the questions that they are about to answer in the experiments. And we even provide the step-by-step process. Medyo kumukulog na dito. So hopefully okay pa rin kayo. So structured inquiry po yun. Yung normal na laboratory setup natin. May question, then they will do the experiments, guided by the procedures, and then even yung how they are going to present the data, they are given, and then also they will make conclusions. Karamihan po sa atin ginagawa na yan. Now let's move to guided inquiry. What is guided inquiry? Tanggalin natin yung ibang elements or ibang aspects ng structured inquiry. So sa guided inquiry naman po, sa guided inquiry natin, ang binibigay lang natin sa estudyante ay questions or objectives. And then they will come up with their experimental design. They will also decide on how they are going to present the data. Ganun po. And then they will make their conclusions. And next, ang pinaka-maganda pong form of inquiry na sana ma-develop natin ay open inquiry. In an open inquiry approach, ano yung tinanggal na natin? Tatanggalin na rin po natin yung questions that we will give our students. They will decide on what questions are they going to answer. They will decide on the materials that they are going to use. They will decide on the different processes hanggang conclusion. Okay. Isang maulang hapon po sa ating lahat. Next. Structured inquiry is not sufficient for appreciating the nature of science. But guided inquiry is considered to be an intermediary level which can assist our students to shift from structured to open inquiry. And open inquiry naman po is considered to be the most complex level of inquiry-based learning. So we are hoping na kahit wala po tayong face-to-face, classroom, or face-to-face discussion, aakyatin natin yung level na yan from structured to guided and open inquiry at the comfort of our students' homes. Yan. Hindi ko po makikita yung FB Live. So maybe you can comment na lang po para I can see after what forms of inquiry teaching have you experienced so far. Para we can help you more kung paano po kakandak yung mga other forms of inquiry. Bakit nga ba kailangan natin mag-conduct po ng inquiry approach? Why conduct inquiry approach? Now, I think some of you are familiar with this one. We have here the P21 or the Partnership Framework for 21st Century Learning. Ano nga ba ang dapat alam ng ating mga students? We have the first one, the core subjects. Of course, meron tayong science or sciences, mathematics, social sciences, And then they also have to learn about 21st century themes. And yung skills po that they have to develop are the following: the life and career skills, the learning and innovation skills, then the information, media, and technology skills. Pero how can we do that? Lalo na ngayon po. Now, we can do something with the standards and assessments. We can do something about curriculum and instruction, professional development, and the learning environment of our students. Professional development, just like attending seminars, katulad po nito, so that we can gain more knowledge on pedagogies. And then we also have here curriculum and instruction. So we teachers, we can do something about our instruction. Yeah, because we wanted our learners to learn about the core subjects, but aside from that, we wanted them to develop skills. Katulad po ng sinabi ko kanina. It is stated the 21st century learner must learn the following. We have core economics, geography, and we also have interdisciplinary themes like global awareness, financial, economic, business, entrepreneurial, at syempre po, importante ngayon ang health literacy. And they should gain skills like innovation skills. Nakapaloob po dyan ang creativity, innovation, critical thinking, problem solving, communication, and even collaboration. Then they should also be able to develop skills in information, media and technology, and life and career skills. So our learners should actually be lifelong learners. Yan po ang aim natin ngayon. Other reasons. Why do we have to conduct inquiry approach? Tingnan po natin. Inquiry approaches were found to have developed students' higher order thinking skills and positive attitudes toward learning science. And then, also teaching through inquiry-based learning has improved engagement in science learning. Pag inquiry-based po, they are more excited, they are more motivated to learn science. They are more engaged and has resulted to deeper conceptual understanding of scientific concepts. Bakit nagiging deeper yung conceptual understanding nila? Siyempre kasi they are owning their investigation. Kaya masaya sila. They decided on what to investigate. They are interested with that. So they are motivated. If you are motivated, mas gusto mong malaman yung concept. Baka nga maging deeper pa yung alam nila about that particular concept that they are very interested in. And also because students were acting like scientists during the inquiry activities. So dun po natin maituturo sa kanila, what is science nga ba talaga? If they are able to experience it. According to Wieland, pero may problem pa rin po. I have mentioned that inquiry approaches, nagagamit na siya. But there are still problems in conducting inquiry approach. According to this one, we have, according to Wieland, the absence of clear model of inquiry-based instruction still hinders teachers from implementing this learning approach. And there is a need for teachers to be provided with the models of classroom instructions appropriate for an open inquiry learning. So yun po, wala pa rin tayong model. What I am trying to share with you will be the models for open inquiry approach also. Then another problem, ito po, siguro po makaka-relate tayo dyan. Problems in the implementation of inquiry approaches. Number 1, lack of clarity on what constitutes the inquiry. Ano nga ba yung mga dapat isama in the inquiry approach? Paano natin ma-involve yung students that they do inquiry? Number 2, or letter B, lack of examples on how it should be facilitated in a classroom setup. So ito pong seminar na to, we will provide you with examples on how you can do it. This time, hindi na siya classroom setup, but sa mga bahay na po nila. Letter C, lack of explicit association between science content and the inquiry process. So after this webinar, yan po, magiging clear na sa atin what constitutes inquiry and how it should be facilitated and how do you associate the science content and in the process. Tingnan po natin ang Philippine Science Education. Comments lang po kayo mababasa ko na lang yan after. Hindi ko po ma-access yung FB Live. So currently, the Philippine Science Education really advocates the implementation of inquiry-based teaching and learning. Pero, I think hindi pa rin po full blast ang implementation ng inquiry-based teaching and learning dito sa atin. Because here are other challenges in the Philippine setup. Number 1, lack of support. According to Gutierrez in 2015, lack of support, maybe lack of trainings. So, hindi po siguro pa-focus yung mga, kulang pa tayo sa professional trainings on inquiry. Availability of inquiry-based materials. So, baka kulang yung materials natin. Pero paano natin gagawin yan ngayon? Wala nga pong klase. So, paano kukuha ng materials yung students natin? Can we address that problem on availability of inquiry-based materials? Next problem, an overemphasis on assessing content, learning rather than learning through inquiry. I will share with you also some tips. Paano tayo this point in time, hindi tayo mag-concentrate muna sa content. Let me share my experience. I have handled General Physics 1 and General Physics 2 at sobrang haba po talaga ng curriculum guide natin na hindi natin siya mako-cover. That's why we have to teach our students how to learn. Para yung mga other topics, they know how to learn it. And they should be able to develop skills like siguro po problem-solving skills. Siyempre, number 1 yan sa physics. Critical thinking skills. Higher order thinking skills. So, yun yung kailangan nating mas i-develop sa kanila. And next, the difficulty and time-consuming nature of inquiry approaches. Tama. So, sobrang haba na nga po. Sobrang tagal pa nung ginawa natin inquiry. Sometimes it will take 1 week to do just one inquiry sa isang topic lang. Pero, still, the learners are learning or you are teaching them the skills. So, we'll see later the tips. Yan, ito po ang unang tip ko sa inyo. This is the model I have used in my research on inquiry. Hindi lang ako nag-concentrate doon sa dito pong part. Sa drafting of questions, experimentation, presentation of findings. I started with this part. We have first KWL chart. Then I asked my students to do research. Then they presented the outputs of their research. Then they drafted the questions. Part 2 na po to. They drafted the questions that they wanted to investigate. Then they will perform the experiment that they will design. And then they will present the findings. Marami po bang work si teacher dito? Hindi masyado. In terms of planning, kasi the students will decide on the questions, experiments, but marami lang tayo part dun sa guiding our students. Wow. So, KWL, very simple. I just ask them to write what they know about the topic. Bigay ko lang po yung context. So, what do you know about this topic? Then, what do you want to know? Meron silang table, as I'll show you later. And then, I will ask them to, then you answer your questions through research. Kasi nga, as I have mentioned po, knowledge or scientific knowledge is readily available. But we have to teach our students, paano nga ba nila i-validate yung nakuha nila sa internet? Kasi may mga iba-ibang resources, iba-iba po yung sinasabi. Then, to address that concern, baka iba yung makover nila na topic, I ask them to present the output of their research outputs. Para I can address any misconception that they have during the presentation. Yan po yung first part. Wala kaming lecturer, Diyan lang, nag-start lang kami sa KWL. Wala kami pong sample problem solving. Yan. So, sila lang po yung nag-discover lahat. Next, yung drafting of questions. They decided on ano nga bang gusto namin i-investigate within the context of the lesson. Siyempre, i-check po natin to if it's still within the context. They can go beyond, pero siyempre mahirap po hindi natin sabay-sabay matapos pa yung topic natin. So, siguro yung next investigation nila, iba naman. And then, they will do the experiments. They will decide on the materials. Kaya, the materials will be available. Dahil titignan nga po nila, kaya ba namin itong gawin with this set of materials? Ay, wala akong ganito. So, hindi ko makakonduct yung gantong experiment. Then after that, they will also present their findings. So, yun yung rule natin. Let's check kung tama yung pag-analyze nila ng data nila, kung tama yung presentation nila. So, they will also decide on how they are going to present the data. So, yan yung ating summary ng Open Inquiry Learning Model. Pag may questions, ibibigay ko na lang po mamaya yung email ad ko. So, you can send me your questions. Here is an example. Very simple lang po to. Ang objectives lang to compute for the work done. When card is, parang compare lang. How the work done is, how the work done varies kapag nasa flat lang or kapag nasa incline. Yan po. So, walang procedure. Sila mag-iisip. Another one, very simple also. It's just gravitational potential energy. Predict what will be the landing speed of a dropped object. So, pwede nilang i-relate yung gravitational potential energy with kinetic energy. Yan po sa physics. Ito po yung kanina, guided inquiry, because you have given them objectives and then the set of materials, then they will design the experiment. Sa next naman po, we have the open inquiry learning. Ito yung ginamit ko, what I know, what I want to know. Tapos ilist lang po nila yung what I learned. Very easy. Here is an example. Ito ha. Sa left, what I know. The power is your capacity to do work. When you're doing work, you consume energy. Tapos yan po, what I want to know. Where did power come from? Ayan na. I guess, lahat po ng students ko siguro online yung ginamit na resources or yung mga sa internet sila kumuha. So you have here in physics, power is the rate of doing work, the amount of energy transferred per unit time. Having no direction, it is scalar quantity. Ang dami na nilang nalaman about power. Then, the unit of power, joule per second, also known as what? Po, na-discover pa nila sino yung developer ng steam engine. So, madali nilang malalaman yung concept about power. And then, you can see yung next paragraph po nila. What's the relationship of these three? Yun yung tanong nila. The kinetic energy of an object is equal to the amount of work that is required to accelerate the object from rest to a certain velocity. Ano yun? That is simply the work energy theorem. Na-discover po nila, hindi ko siya discuss. Next, what I know. Number 2, example. I know that we can work by exerting power. The power comes and get from, ayan muna po natin yung grammar nila. But of course, we can always ask an English teacher na mag-collaborate kayo to check their grammar too. Then I want to know how energy I get into power. Well, at least na-express ko nila what they wanted to know. And look at this. Most power plants use coal, but some use natural gas. Tama nga naman po, right? That is also another, that is an answer. How do we get power or how energy I get into power? Power plants sila, yung diniscuss nila. But it's no longer within the context of our topic. So yun po yung role natin. Para ibalik po natin sila dun sa konteksto nung topic natin. Pero syempre, we allow them to write their answers. Still, it's also learning. Mas advanced nga lang dun sa din i-discuss natin. Here is a sample presentation of my students. Ulit po, wala kaming lecture for an open inquiry approach in this part. Sinulat nila. Of course, meron pang face-to-face class po noon. It's a capacity to do work. Ayan yung work energy theorem. Pwede lang po natin lagyan na yung delta work. And then they even discuss sample problems. May nag-relate pa no? Mayroon pang isang grupo wherein they were able to come up with yung scalar product definition of work. Yan po, FD cosine theta. Thus, and explain how the angle actually affects, how the angle between force and the displacement affects the work done. Ayun po, di ba? Masaya kasi natututo sila on their own. Next. Okay, ganito lang po yan. Open inquiry template. May name lang, tapos write their questions. Of course, you can have your own templates. Ilista lang nila yung materials nila. Next. Ayan, wala pong laman. They discuss their experimental design. We will not supply them with the experimental design. They will decide for it. Sila din po magde-decide how they are going to present their results. Will they use table, graph? Sila pong bahala. And then, isagutan nila yung tanong nila. Then, they make conclusions. Ito po yung sample pictures nila. We have dynamic cards, kaya some group decided to use dynamic cards. Ito, gumawa sila ng kanilang bow and arrow. They just needed the spring balance para ma-scale po nila yung force nila. And I think they were trying to investigate yung landing speed. So, napasok dun yung work energy theorem. Po. You will see the creativity of your students kapag ganyan. Ito, simple lang, may bola, tapos naglagay po sila ng pulbo para to lessen friction. Okay? So, allow them to be creative. Ayan. So, I also allow them to make mistakes. Ganun po talaga ang scientist. Sometimes you fail. Sometimes you fail again. Then, fail again. Basta, you have to try again. So, yan yung kanilang design. They can draw. They can express it in written. Yan po yung example. Yan. Naka-table sila. And then, another example. Here at this point. But how do we assess our students? Lalo na nga po ngayon. How can we assess them? My answer is isang malaking performance assessment. Okay, katulad po ng shinare ko sa inyo, I was able to teach senior high school. So physics, general physics, performance assessment doon ay 45%. How do we assess their performance? For me, lahat po ng inquiry approaches na ginawa nila, the investigation, the experiments, pwede niyo po lahat yan ilagay sa performance assessments. And we can use rubrics. Yun nga sinabi ko, kahit hindi po tayo mag-concentrate sa merely content or sa definitions, sa problem solving, yung mismong performance nila, tingnan din po natin yung investigation, experimentation, doing their research, we can assess that. Kahit wala po tayong face-to-face interaction. Ano po? Here is an example. Rubrics for grading the planning and designing. So, 1, performance na po yan. Yan, you can grade the problem, the hypothesis, the experimental procedures, the materials. I think magpo-provide naman po ng copy ng PowerPoint. You'll check. And then yung rubrics. Po, meron tayong completion of experiment, data, analysis, conclusion. So, yan yung rubrics na pwede po natin gamitin for grading our students. So, that's grading the processing and evaluation. And then also, you can grade how they are presenting. Ngayon po, since they cannot present face-to-face, maybe our students are also creative. Yung iba, pwede silang gumawa ng videos. Yung iba, animations po siguro. It's up to them on how they are going to present their findings and their research. So maybe you will come up with a different rubrics. Next, ganun din, meron din po kaming group activity self-evaluation. So they evaluate themselves. Ano yung participation nila in doing research, in sharing the information, in participating in the different tasks, and cooperating with the teammates. So, reporting and presenting findings. Yan. So mamaya na po siguro yung mga questions. Now, sharing the research results. How do the students find the open inquiry approach and the guided inquiry approach? Well, here is the student's description of guided inquiry learning approach. So ano yung heart ng guided inquiry? You can see here that the heart of the guided inquiry learning approach is the experiment that the students are performing. Yan po, meron sila dyan. Skills, they learn, they design, observe, they analyze, present, they listen, they think, knowledge, theories, materials, equipment, experimental investigation. That's how they describe guided inquiry, which is very appropriate dun po sa sinabi natin. Kasi nga sa guided inquiry, you give them the questions, then they will be the ones to design the experiment. Ang open inquiry learning approach, tingnan niyo po. The center or the heart of the open inquiry learning approach based on this word cloud, based po yan sa ano nila, interview at saka open-ended questions. Ay questions. Bakit questions? Kasi questions actually served as their guide. Yun din yung nag-spark ng kanilang interest in doing science. Susunod lang dun yung experiment. And they were able to answer, they had explanation, formula, they discussed, they were thrilled. Nag-explain sila, they were excited. Yan, may cooperation, may observation, shocked. O, di ba? Kasi hindi ko po nasabi na yung mga students ko, first time nilang nag-undergo ng open inquiry, pero yan pa rin po yung mga reactions nila. And they were curious, they participate, and so on. Okay? Did they learn? In physics, we are using height gain. So, yan po. Sa guided inquiry, ang height gain ay 0.04, which is considered to be low. Sa open inquiry naman po ay high yung kanilang height gain. So, did they learn the concepts? Yes. Was there retention? Yes. Kasi sila po yung nag-discover. Ang ginamit ko pong test dito, yung standardized test, yung EMCS, if you're familiar with that, Energy Momentum Concept Survey. Hindi po siya madaling exam. It involves analysis. It also involves problem solving. Okay? Let me emphasize na hindi po kami nag-lecture. Yung ako talaga yung nag-discuss lahat. Then, hindi rin ako nag-discuss ng sample problem solving. They were solving the problems in the experiments that they have designed. Did they acquire skills? What do you think? Yan po yung 21st century skills that they acquired. And they acquired science process skills, inventive thinking. They learned about critical thinking, leadership. Yan po yung mga terms. They were observing, investigating, they analyze variables, they measure. Inventive thinking, kasi nag-create sila ng kanilang design na experiment. Creating design, designing the experiment. Hindi naman always kailangan may product. Kung gusto mo lang mag-investigate, then you have these materials that is also being created. Po, hindi laging kailangan meron tayong produkto in open inquiry and guided inquiry learning. Po, design, they discovered. Compute, calculation, so they were able to learn about problem solving. They developed logical thinking, analyzation, application, so they were able to develop critical thinking skills. Now, this one is collaborative in nature. Pwede pa rin po natin i-apply yun kasi marami namang way for us to collaborate. So, they developed their leadership skills. They were discussing, they explained, they have arguments, so meron din pong communication skills na develop nila ang kanilang leadership skills. Yeah. So ngayon, kahit communication, natutunan po kasi nila yung communication from the presentations and the teamworks. Ayan. So, sa communication po, ngayon, pwede pa rin nilang matutunan dahil ang communication naman, it's not always verbal. Pwede nilang, they can present their outputs through written communication. Ayan, ayan po yung mga verbatim responses nila. Logically, it enhances our critical thinking. I think I developed my skill in problem solving. I think the developed skills I have now are to design po, and conduct scientific investigations. Good communication skills kasi po nakausap namin yung mga classmates namin, nagbe-brainstorm kami. Di ba po, ang sarap pakinggan pag yung mga estudyante natin nagbe-brainstorm. Yan. Good communication skills. Naulit na po. Sorry. Yun lang yung some of their responses. I was also able to identify the difficulties. Meron pa rin, syempre, silang difficulties. Problem solving. It is because they were not used to the open inquiry, that they solve their own problem. Normally, binibigay po sa kanila yung question and may mga sample problems. Dali lang yung kulog. Okay. Now, they were able to encounter complex process, kaya nahirapan po sila. Very complex nga naman kasi they started with KWL, research, present, tapos mag-investigate pa sila. And then they had no prior knowledge about the topic and about the strategy. So kahit po biglain natin sila na mag-guided inquiry kayo, mag-open inquiry kayo, okay lang kasi they can still adapt. Pero syempre pag halimbawa elementary, hinay-hinayin po natin yung steps. We start with structured inquiry, guided inquiry, pero kaya din nilang open inquiry. Scaffolds. Ito po yung mga nakita kong support na pin-provide ng model. Questions. Scaffolded the learning of the students. The questions served as their outline. May guide na po sila. And communication, since they have learned through communicating with their group mates. Owning their investigation. Kasi nga, mas interesado po tayo kapag gusto natin yung iniimbestigahan natin. Tama po? Even kahit sa research, kung love natin yung topic natin, talagang matututo po tayo. Excuse me. Teamwork. Yan, kasi nga po is collaborative. So nakatulong din sa mga bata yung collaboration. Hands-on, because they can see the experiment, they can experience science, they can experience the experiments, they can investigate. Then availability of materials. Sobrang yung sa availability ng materials po, nakatulong sa kanila daw dahil nga sila yung nag-decide ng mga materials na gusto nila gamitin. And then teacher's assistance. Siyempre po, nandun pa rin tayo. Meron pa rin tayong role para ma-check natin if there are certain misconceptions. Do we need to ask them questions para maayos yung misconception na yun? And then the research helped them a lot. Kasi sabi po nila, no prior knowledge. Nung nag-research na sila, natuto na sila. There are so many scaffolds provided by the open inquiry learning model. Kaya wag po kayong matakot gamitin yung inquiry approach na yan. And next. Yan na po, ibang verbatim responses. Mas naging madali intindihin yung rules at saka yung laws kasi kami yung nagdi-discover. Hindi na pressure kung ano yung binigay sa amin. At madali lang humanap ng materials. Yung una po, mahirap kasi hindi po namin napag-aralan. Pero dahil po dun sa questions, and very important po yung KWL na magsulat sila ng questions nila. Doon din po parang exciting po siyang gawin. Kasi doon po namin makikita na natutunan namin yung topic na yon. May sense of fulfillment. Kapag ito yung questions ko, I wanted to answer it. So, yun po, na-fulfill sila doon. Okay? So, yun yung ating first part ng discussion. Discussing about structured inquiry, guided inquiry, open inquiry, because those are the teaching and learning strategies which can actually help us still do science, still do investigations, still experience nature of science at the comfort of our students' homes or at the comfort of our homes. Ano po? So, number one, example ko muna. Ito na po yung mga sample resources that we can actually use. Structured inquiry. There are so many available materials. I-play ko na lang po to para check natin. So, for example, ayan po, one example. Ayan, naka-video po to, so hindi ko na siya makontrol yung scrolling. Pero one example is sa physicsclassroom.com. Ayan. Meron po silang activities. Meron nang nakaset na activity. Pag kinlik nyo yung activity 1, meron na pong, yan na, meron na siyang experiment. Meron ng activity guide. Then they just have to complete the data. Meron na rin pong questions. Yan. So magpo-focus na lang tayo sa strategy natin. So since it's a structured inquiry, ang gusto po natin, i-investigate nila yung question na yun at they will be able to come up with the data. So i-click nyo lang po yung Launch Interactive or i-click lang ng students natin yung Launch Interactive and then mapaperform na nila yung simple experiment. Ano po? Okay? So I provided here the link. Next. Baka po kasi medyo mag kapag nag-open ako ng other site. So next video po, I'll show you another example. Ito naman po, for chemistry, you can check chemcollective.org. So it's also a virtual laboratory. If ang concern po natin, paano nga yun? Walang chemicals yung mga bata sa bahay. Wala silang mga materials, wala silang equipments. How can we do the experiment? Then we will be using simulations. Nasa ano na natin yan, strategy. Paano natin sila papagawin yung experiment. I-play ko po ulit yung video. Hindi po yata na-play yung sound. Wait lang po. Okay, I'm trying to change yung sa sound. Kung maririnig po natin siya, parang, ayan. Tingnan po natin. So, i-play ko lang po to. Again, it's available on the internet. We have chemcollective.org. It's a virtual laboratory for chemistry. Okay, i-play ko po yung video. Sana marinig niyo po yung audio niya.
Welcome to the new Chem Collective Virtual Laboratory. This version is HTML5 based and will run on most devices. The Stockroom Explorer is shown on the left with menus in the problem name in the upper panels. Clicking on the problem name displays information about this activity. In the Stockroom Explorer, use the tabs at the top to select between reagents, glassware, and tools. Clicking on a group expands or collapses the items inside. To bring an item out of the stockroom, single-click on it. This puts the item on the desktop, and information about the item appears in the Solution Information panel. To return to the stockroom, click on the Collapsed Stockroom panel at the top of the pane. I'll get ready for a titration by using the glassware menu to get a burette. I'll also get an indicator and a sample of the unknown acid I'm going to titrate. When a flask is selected, you can view detailed information about it in the Solution Info panel on the left. The name of the currently selected flask is shown along with its volume. The table below shows the species in the solution along with their amounts. The amount can be shown in molarity, moles, and grams. The Solution Information panel also shows temperature and pH. The View menu and Viewer Configuration button allow you to toggle displays of additional information, such as the UV-Vis spectrum and a list of the solid species in the vessel. To transfer a solution from one piece of glassware to another, drag the source flask onto the destination flask. Notice that the flasks are now connected and the transfer window is activated. The transfer window has 3 tabs: Precise, Significant Figures, and Realistic, for each of the transfer modes in the virtual lab. To transfer a solution in precise mode, type the desired amount and click Pour. Notice the updated information in the Solution Information panel. When your transfer is complete, click the X button at the top right of the transfer window, or drag the flasks apart. Next, I'll transfer a sample of the unknown acid solution to a new flask.
So yan po, pwede silang maglagay ng acids or ng solutions. So yan sa virtual lab. And ito po nakalagay dito, unknown acid problem. If you will click that, lalabas na po dyan yung question. So this virtual laboratory is actually offering guided inquiry. Since meron na po kayong questions that you are to answer or our students will answer. Pero sila po yung mag-manipulate yung sa virtual lab. Hindi niya sinasabi kung paano yung gagawin natin. Ang tutorial lang niya, paano kayo magta-transfer ng water, paano kayo magta-transfer ng chemicals, paano mo siya ililipat from one container to another, tapos paano mo ilalabas yung weighing scale. Pero yung strategy, kung paano nila ipe-perform, nasa estudyante po. Una, you can make it as a guided inquiry approach since meron na siyang problem. Dito po. Then next, you can also make it a structured inquiry approach. Kung bibigyan niyo po sila nung step-by-step process on how they will do it, pero in the context na nasa virtual lab sila. Then, you will also show them, meron ding blank doon for the data, kung paano nila i-represent the data, and then kung paano nila i-conclude. So I suggest po, siguro pag first time nila, they can have structured inquiry for this one. Nung nakita ko kasi siya, medyo mahirap siyang i-navigate. Unlike yung isang simulations po na ipapakita ko sa inyo. Pero still, it provides laboratory activities, guided inquiry approach. Na marami po yan. If you can check Chem Collective, marami po silang simulations or virtual lab. For specifically for chemistry. We'll see, ano pa bang, ayan. Yan po. May tutorial po siya kung paano siya lalagay yung mga materials dun sa workbench. Okay, next. Yeah, so chemcollective.org/sims for the virtual laboratory. So you can see here, ang dami po nilang topics. So if you wanted to come up with structured inquiry, I think mag-e-effort po kayo dun sa mismong, yun nga, as I have mentioned, yung methods on how they will conduct the investigation. Pag sanay na sila, they can move to guided inquiry since meron naman na pong problem that they are to answer. Tapos kanya-kanyang design sila ng experiment. Siyempre, they will do research on how they will have or how they will conduct the experiment. So they will learn the process. Paano nga ba chine-check yung solubility? Paano nga ba chine-check yung concentration or pH level and so on? So yan po, nakikita niyo yung mga topics. We have stoichiometry, thermochemistry, kinetics, equilibrium, acid-base chemistry, solubility, oxidation, reduction, analytical chemistry lab or lab techniques. So marami po silang topics na na-cover. So actually, I will be sharing with you, 3 lang yung nakita ko po talaga na madali gamitin. Yan. Pero magiging very productive po ang ating mga students when they use those animations. Next, PASCO also has this website. Yan, meron po silang PASCO Distance Learning for Teachers. It covers physics, chemistry, biology, and they even have here online instruction. So you have here home science tools. Check nyo rin po yung website ng PASCO. Now, marami silang demonstrations that they are conducting experiment. One example is this, focal length. of a converging lens. Tingnan natin po kung... sige. Later na lang, balikan natin. Baka mag-lag yung internet. I will just discuss that they had this demonstration for checking for the focal length of a converging lens. Then, magpe-present po sila ng data. So, what form of inquiry is this? This is considered to be structured inquiry. May problem, then they will be the one to perform the experiment. So, hindi na natin kailangan ibigay yung procedure kasi pwede na nilang tingnan yung demonstration. And then, they will also present the data. Yan po, alimbawa yan, may data na dito. Then, ang may iwan na sa estudyante natin is to complete the data and then to make the conclusions. Kaya, structured inquiry approach. Check nyo yung PASCO. Ito ang example. Some of their experiments are or could be guided inquiry, like this one. Ang question po niya, what is the focal length of the converging lens provided by your instructor? Or use the principles of refraction and thin lens equation to experimentally determine the focal length. Ganun lang yung sinabi. But it is your group's responsibility to design and conduct the experiment, whose data will support your answer. Pag ganyan naman po, kung sa normal setup natin that we can meet our students, it could be considered as a guided inquiry. Dahil may objective, may question, pero wala experimental design. If your school also has the instruments, pwede din naman kayong mag-video, mag-demo para sa ating mga estudyante. Kaya yan yung kanilang guiding questions. See, marami na pong materials online na pwede natin gamitin. Siyempre, pwede tayong gumawa ng sarili nating module para personalize, pero we can also check other resources. Medyo mababawasan yung burden on our part. Because ang challenge doon, or ang maganda doon, yung skill natin on looking for resources na very appropriate, na maganda talaga sa ating mga estudyante. So yan, meron na silang explain how equation 1 helps inform which measurements you will make in your investigation. What variables in equation 1 can be measured directly. So, meron na po silang guide. This one is also PASCO video. I-play ko na po yung video. This is about evaporative cooling.
Carol, looks like we have some fun, different kinds of substances and models to play with. What are we doing today?
Oh, yes. Actually, I wanted to start this whole experiment with a question for you, Roger.
All right.
Do you ever sweat?
Is it every day? Yes, I do. Absolutely.
Well, do you know why you sweat?
Other than to make me uncomfortable, I don't know. Why do I sweat?
It's your body's way of cooling you down.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So
Makes sense.
today we are doing a lab on evaporative cooling, so we understand what it means when something evaporates and cools you down, just like your own perspiration. So we're actually going to be studying 3 different liquids.
Okay.
One of them is plain old water. Then we're going to move into 91% isopropyl alcohol. Very easy to get. This is something that comes from your local drugstore. And then finally, we are going to be using acetone. Acetone is basically nail polish remover. Again, something very easy for everybody to acquire. I would encourage you to actually try these experiments at home because they're awfully fun. But today we are going to be looking at what happens to the temperature when these things begin to evaporate. So this is experiment 11A in Essential Chemistry, and we have configuration files that are already set up for you to do these. So shall we get started?
Absolutely. Let me turn on the temperature thermometer here, and then we'll have to connect, I'm guessing.
There we are.
Oh, awesome.
We are connected.
Okay.
Done. Now we're actually ready to rock and roll. So I'm going to take samples of each of these liquids and simply pour them into the beakers that have been set in front of them. That's water, This is isopropyl alcohol.
Or rubbing alcohol, maybe
Rubbing
labeled.
alcohol, that's
That's in your
right.
house.
This is not something you want to drink.
Nope.
No, no, no. And this is your nail polish remover.
Awesome.
So are we ready, Roger?
I think we're ready to go.
Okay, so we're going to start with water, and I want everybody to pay attention to the curve as the water begins to evaporate.
Okay.
Ready,
Just
all
tell me
set?
again. Yep. And go.
Let's go. It's beginning to cool already. As you can see, the temperature is beginning to go down. As the water evaporates, the temperature is going down. I have a little question to ask you. Is this an endothermic or an exothermic reaction that's happening over here? Evaporation seems to happen very quickly at the beginning, but as you can see, the curve is beginning to flatten. So this is very interesting. We are going to carry this out for 60 seconds. We're almost there.
Okay. I can still see there's water on the end there, so that's
Still a little bit
good.
of water. Still evaporating.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to stop right here.
Excellent. Okay.
Now, let's
I'll
go
make sure I
shake
get
that out a little bit.
And I'm gonna
Now
make
we're
sure-
going to go into isopropyl alcohol. Oh,
Get it back to the
Again,
temperature of
this
this
is structured
liquid, which is room temperature. All right.
are we ready?
Go.
This is isopropyl alcohol. Now, do you get the sense that it is cooling down faster than the water? We're going to be able to look at all those curves together when we finish this experiment.
For this topic, whether
So if
it
we
is
sweat
chemistry,
water,
whether it's
I hear they use this in
exams,
hospitals as well. Is it for the same reason?
maybe also biology.
I would think, to cool you off.
Let us look at runs.
So, yan na po
So,
yung kanilang
Roger.
graph.
Let's check these out.
Okay, so that's run one here.
Run 1 is water.
Okay.
Run 3 is acetone. Oh, run 3 is alcohol, sorry.
That's right.
And run 5 is acetone.
Wow.
Then the students can now analyze and compare yung pong evaporative cooling or yung temperature ng tatlong liquids natin. So again, structured inquiry because may questions na. Then they were the ones performing the experiment. Ang estudyante lang natin, they will analyze. Wow. So you can check this also. Yan yung kanilang, why does perspiration make you feel cooler? So that's why I mentioned that pwede rin siyang i-apply sa biology. How is cooling related to molecular properties? Mahaba po kasi yung video na yon. So please watch it. After nitong webinar na to, gumamit pa sila ng molecular structure. And then they were trying to explain kung bakit mas mabilis mag-evaporate yung isa compared dun po sa isa. So it has something to do with this. Check po natin, no? So here, may procedure, pero as I've mentioned, they were the ones performing the experiment. We are very lucky kasi gumawa din po sila ng way para matulungan tayo for distance learning setup. Maraming mga websites ang gumawa ng ganung learning setups. Okay, this is for biology.
What lab are we doing today?
Today we're going to look at how different light sources, or even the absence or presence of light, affects the rate of photosynthesis in a couple of spinach leaves.
Excellent. Well, we've got the right sensors and the right material. Let's get started.
Our carbon dioxide sensor is already calibrated. So we're going to put the sensor into the system, and now it's a closed system with just spinach leaves and a carbon dioxide sensor.
I'll hit the start button, and we can see the rate.
Let me turn on the light. We're going to start with white light. And we're going to collect data for 5 minutes. We'll speed through that data collection for you.
All right, as we're winding up now towards 5 minutes, we can see a nice rate of CO2 is going down.
Okay, ito po yung guide nila. Plant respiration and photosynthesis. Do plants perform cellular respiration in addition to photosynthesis? Do plants affect carbon dioxide concentration in a closed system differently in light versus dark environments? So, tingnan nyo po, very possible pa rin tayo magkaroon ng experiment. Or we can still investigate, they can still observe, kahit nasa bahay sila. So here are the materials. As I've mentioned, you can do your own demonstration kung meron po tayong instruments. Meron na rin silang page for data collection. Initial CO2 concentration, final carbon dioxide concentration, and then the change. Kompleto na po na activity paper. Hindi na tayo mamroblema. Baka nga during this pandemic, ang positive sa ating science teachers is that our students might be able to experience yung mas mahirap pa na laboratory. Kasi katulad po nito, pinakita ko, medyo complex yung setup nila. Pero, magagamit ng estudyante. Yun po yung examples ng structured inquiry approach. Pero, for those who cannot access online resources, may ibang way pa rin naman po tayo. Like, you design the experiment, you give them the questions, you tell them the materials that they are going to use, pero make sure that the materials are just available at home. Diba, meron po tayong tinatawag na kitchen science. Sa physics, marami rin po tayong pwedeng experiments na very simple materials lang ang kailangan. Katulad po nung kanina, they were just using ball. Tapos, yung isa, they were using arrow, bow and arrow, na sila yung gumawa. Tapos, mayroon din po tayong mga available sensors na pwedeng app, like force sensor. May mga app tayo na pwede rin gamitin. So, they can still do experiment kahit kung hindi talaga po makaka-access online. But we have to make sure that they are still learning how to know about science or how to know how to do investigation, how to do or how to infer based on their observation. So, yun po yung aim natin na gusto nating matutunan nila. Next, I will give you examples na guided and meron din na pwede nyo rin siyang i-twist into open inquiry. Yan. Pa-heart na lang po kung naiintindihan natin yung or kung nagiging nakakatulong yung mga resources na binibigay po. Here is an example na pwede natin po siyang gawing guided inquiry. I-play ko na lang din po ulit. This is from physics classroom. Okay? Yan. Physics classroom na meron na rin po yung mga discussions like kinematics, Newton's laws, vectors, marami po yan na nagdi-discuss na rin sila. Here is another example.
So here you can also see some examples of simulations. We have
so yun po, may mga examples ng simulations like the cart and the brick, egg trap, para hindi sayang yung itlog. Pero we can use the actual egg. Meron pong notes. Meron na pong activity paper. Hindi na tayo mahihirapan, mga science teachers. Let's just be resourceful. Yan po, kompleto na. They have the background. Then, marami silang set of questions that the students can answer dun lang sa interactive, dun sa simulation. Pwede na rin quiz po yan. Or formative assessment nila. Yan, ilo-launch nyo lang po yung interactive. Nirecord ko na pong video para hindi tayo magka-problema sa internet while playing this. So So yan po, using the interactive egg drop activity. That you can change factors like egg size, drop height, and then the landing surface. Tapos yan po, walang masasayang na itlog for this experiment. Kasi minsan yun yung comment ng students ko po when we do egg drop, sayang naman yung itlog, ma'am. Mas challenging po kasi kapag raw yung egg. Yan, the egg is safe. So may explanation din, may calculation na. Di ba, it's very difficult for us to calculate kasi marami pong yung mga variables that we cannot control. Pero this one, meron na rin calculation. You have the mass, na-identify na rin yung speed niya, and then the time. So we can use it in our discussion. Okay, next. Another guided inquiry example. Ito po, pwede nyo na itong i-copy. Number 1, we will provide the questions. Number 1, what are the factors affecting gravitational potential energy? Number 2, how does each factor affect gravitational potential energy? Dito po, mag-navigate lang ako dun sa isa. Wait lang po, i-open ko lang yung simulation. Okay, yan po. Now, we can give this to our students. Pwede siya na-download, pwede rin naman po siya online. So, pwede siyang guided inquiry because you have given them the questions. Pag tinanggal niyo na po si questions, pwede na siyang open inquiry approach. Bahala na silang mag-control. What do they want to investigate? I-click ko nga itong bar graph, siguro po, check nila. Yeah, they can now see how potential energy is changing to kinetic energy. Tapos makikita nila yung total energy. Yan, very visual. Na maiintindihan na po nila yung energy conservation. Ano pa yung pwede nila i-investigate? Kung sila po sila yung mag-iisip ng tanong nila. Siguro pwede din nila, they can also present the data na ganito naman. Tanggalin lang po siya natin. So here, you can present the data like this. Ang gusto kong tignan ay yung potential muna. Kung ganun po yung isip ng students natin. I want to check the potential energy. Then, paano kaya kapag mahilig po ang mga estudyante po natin ngayon, mas magaling pa sila sa computer. Alam nila yung i-click nila. So, what if gusto-gusto nila yung bulldog? But what if bulldog na may nilagay ko? Tapos, balik ko si skater. So, you can see that there's a difference in the gravitational potential energy. Then, baka ma-figure out na nila, the mass is affecting the gravitational potential energy. Kasi when I increase the mass, tumaas siya. So, pwedeng sa isang group, yun po yung tanong nila. Okay? What happens to the kinetic energy naman? So, pwede natin tanggalin si potential. And then, tingnan naman natin din yung kinetic energy ni bulldog. Mas mababa pa rin yung kinetic energy niya. So, the mass also affects it. Yan po, pwedeng ganun yung takbo ng isip ng ating mga estudyante. Tapos, tingin-tingin lang sila dito sa side. Kung ilagay ko kaya siya sa kung ilagay ko kaya siya sa skater, kung ilagay ko kaya siya sa Jupiter. Yun. What if ibalik ko siya sa Earth? Nawala na siya. You can return the skater. Balik po natin siya. Yan, return the skater. Unahin natin sa Jupiter. Yan. Ibalik po natin siya sa Earth. Okay. So they can now identify another factor affecting the gravitational potential energy. So meron pa kayong, if they want to measure, meron pa measuring tape. Potential energy reference, grid. Pwede rin pong i-track yung friction. So again, dalawang techniques po pwede dito. Either guided, if you provided them with questions, or open inquiry. If you just gave them the context, we are discussing about, or we will be having a discussion on work power energy and gravitational potential energy. And then click this animation or simulation, and then prepare your questions. Tapos, balik po ako dun sa PowerPoint. Yan. So, ito yung outputs nila. As I have mentioned, let's give emphasis on performance assessment. Ang dami na po nilang gagawin. Outputs, experimental design. Using simulation, of course. Ganun din po ulit, kapag wala talaga, then using available materials. Then they will present the data. Pwedeng bar graph, pwedeng table, pwede rin po yung XY graph. And then they do the analysis of what are the different factors affecting the potential energy. And then they will make conclusions. Ang dami na po nilang outputs. So, marami na rin tayo i-check. But the good thing is, of course, you can have this one as collaborative work. Make sure na, basta make sure po na matututo silang lahat. Yeah? Or involve sila dun sa investigation. Okay, next. Another example. Yan, ito naman po, open inquiry example, states of matter. This time, open inquiry, hindi ako nagbigay po ng questions. I will not give you the questions. So, basta puntahan nyo tong animation na to. Lang ko ha. Share ulit ako ng PhET simulation. Search nyo na po yan, PhET simulations, then makikita nyo na po yan. And this is also a good animation or good simulation. We have solid, liquid, and gas. I will show you a particular example. What if it change ko to neon or argon? What will happen? Oxygen, water. So, ma-investigate po nila yan. Oh, what if I heated this one? Anong mangyayari? What if I try to cool it down? What will happen? Meron din po kayong phase change where they can investigate how pressure and temperature also affects it. They can even see the phase diagram. Balikan ko po ito ha. Ito, gusto ko po itong water eh. Yan. When we heat up water, so you can use it as guided, pwede rin structured, basta you provide the steps. Halimbawa, apply heat to the container up to this Kelvin. Pwede rin po yun. It's up to you. Pero for me, we wanted to reach the open inquiry. Kaya, go to this one, then draft your questions. Yan, bumibilis na po, di ba? What if I try to cool it down? Masyado po pala napataas na yung temperature, so let's try to cool it down. Yan. Another problem kapag classroom setup tayo, we are limited sa time. Halimbawa, experiment po natin 1 hour lang. Pag sa bahay sila, if they are very engaged with the experiment, may extend pa nila yung paggawa nila ng experiment. Ayan po. Malapit na, malapit na. Masyado po naakyat yung ating temperature. Ayan. Nakita niyo po ba yung isa bago pa nagganto? Okay. Can you see it? Yan, una, if we try to heat it a little, konti lang, konti-konti lang, yan, they are actually compressed. There. But if you try to cool it, yun yung kakaibang behavior ng water na they are densest at 4 degrees Celsius. Pero kapag nag-cool down sila, unlike other materials na nagko-contract kapag they are cooling down, unlike water, they behave differently. Ayan, they can see it. Apo. kahit hindi ka na gumawa ng visual aids kasi ito, ang ganda-gandang visual aid na for our students. Okay? So please use PET simulation. Hanapin niyo po yung mga iba-ibang simulations nila. It's for free, pero you can also donate dun sa Colorado. Next. Ang outputs po natin dito, yan, questions. And then they can have their experimental designs. Then the data itself. Then the analysis of data and their conclusions. Ayan po yung example natin for states of matter. Okay, next example is open inquiry also about gases naman. Okay, so you have, again, outputs are questions, the experimental design, the data, the analysis of data, and the conclusion. This one, okay, wait lang po ha. Nag-pause yung screen sharing, so hindi ko po na ibalik. Wait lang. Yan. Okay. So I think you can see it now. Now, I have mentioned I was able to handle junior high school, senior high school, and college students. And then right now, I'm also experiencing teaching elementary. Kasi I have a toddler, 5 years old na po siya. Kinder na siya ngayon. Nanggulo lang siya sa akin when I was preparing the presentation. I was looking for animations. Then she is curious about what I'm doing. Mami, anong ginagawa mo? Sige, try to do it. Kasi wala din naman po akong matatapos kapag nandyan siya. So try to do the experiment, sabi ko po sa kanya. Then hopefully you can hear this one. Wait lang po ha. Ipe-play ko lang yung video. Please listen dun sa mga nababanggit niya. This was not intentional at first, pero when I discover, parang ang gaganda nung tanong niya. Hindi po siya scripted. So, pakinggan po natin ha. 5-year-old doing investigation in physics. Or about gases.
I want that cold.
Yeah. You want?
Hot.
Okay.
What happened?
Ikaw, magtingin ka.
It's getting bigger and bigger.
The what?
The red one.
The red one.
Sinasabi po niya bigger and
It's
bigger.
getting higher.
Thermometer.
Wait ka lang.
This is liquid. And ayoko yung nawawala yung hot.
Ayun o. Tapos? Ano nangyari?
Humahaba yung red.
Tapos?
Tapos, lumalakas na yung mga pop-pop.
Mga pop-pop. Ang tawag din sa pop.
Okay, see? Tingnan niyo po, sabi niya humahaba yung red. Even though hindi niya alam na temperature pa yan, alam niya na humahaba yung red. And nare-relate niya yun dun sa galaw daw ng mga pop-pop. She didn't know that they are also known as particles. Pero naka-observe po siya. Ibig sabihin, kaya ng mga students po talaga natin.
Pop. Particles.
Particle.
Tapos?
Humahaba na.
Ito, ano yan? Ano nangyari dun sa pressure? Ito yung pressure.
There. Whoa.
Ano nangyari dito?
Uy, bubilis na yung mga clouds.
Clouds.
Clouds. Ano ba class experiment yan?
Ano? It's a...
Sabi po niya, bumibilis na yung mga clouds. So, na-relate niya yung temperature dun sa movement ng mga particles. In our view, it's gaining kinetic energy. See? So, if a 5-year-old can do the observation, can make analysis, kahit hindi pa niya alam yung mga terms, of course, our students, be it in elementary, junior high, senior high, even in college, will appreciate the use of this one and they can learn something from it. And they learned on their own.
About gases. O, bumibilis na sila, di ba? O, tapos, ano nang gagawin mo?
Ano nangyari?
Nawala na yung cover kasi mataas na yung pressure. Ano pang gusto mong gawin?
I want other kind of experiments, Mommy. I want that.
Ito ulit. Baba mo ulit to.
Okay. This one? This one.
This one. Ay, no. This. Click.
Okay.
Click mo muna. Click, then
Up,
down.
down.
Nangyayari.
Ay, dumadaan.
Yan, na-fast forward na po dahil medyo matagal siyang.
Tapos?
Tapos, what happened?
Ano nangyayari?
What happened?
Nangyayari?
What happened? May kaya rin ito para mawala sila.
Tingnan mo na.
Ano nangyayari?
Ano nangyayari?
Ay, hindi na siya makahinga.
Ano nangyayari?
Ay, tingnan ko. Wala siya.
Wala na?
Zero na.
Opo. Anong nangyari dun sa particles?
Non-stop sila. Bakit non-stop sila huminga?
Ay, hindi. Nag-stop na yung movement nila.
Okay, see, from there, yung absolute zero scale, nakita po natin doon sa animation. Yan, so 0 Kelvin, then the particles stop. So the students will appreciate it. Tapos narinig niyo po yung sinabi niya na, Mommy, I want more kind of experiments. I want more experiments. So they are interested. They are motivated to learn more and also do more experiments because of these simulations. Now, ang ano na sa part ko, yun, nung ginagawa po namin to, hindi ko natapos yung presentation ko dahil sa kanyang presensya. Ano po? So, let's enjoy also pag may mga anak tayo, we can share these stuffs with them because they will appreciate the nature of science at an early age. Wow. Next. Here is also simulation about balloons and buoyancy. Pwede natin ibigay na question po sa kanila. How can you make the hot air balloon float? Your outputs, the outputs expected are experimental design, using the simulation, the data, the analysis of data, and then the conclusions. Stop ko po ulit ha. Yan. So here is another PhET simulation. Yan po, pwede, how can you make it float? So pwede ka, you just pump the handle so that you can have the particles there. Ayan, nag-float na yung particles. So pwede rin po, gravity also can affect it. Yan. So how can you make it move or how can you make it float? Pwede nilang i-investigate, what if I added heat? Will it float or not? Yan, I have selected heavy species or heavy particles. What will happen? Yan, add heat pala. Dun po pala, sorry. So here, yung kanina, ang nag-add ako ng heat dito sa container. Let's try to reset. Okay, there. Let's have light or heavy species or heavy particles. And pwede rin naman dito po ilagay. And then, they can decide, ano gusto kong constant? Pwede kayang i-constant ko ang volume or i-constant ko si pressure, si temperature. So, they will decide. Hindi po tayong bahala doon. Sila ang bahala and then they will write it down. Try lang natin sila turuan. Ipatry lang po natin sa kanila and then they will be used to it hanggang matuto na sila paano magsulat talaga ng investigation, how they should write the procedures and how they should do the analysis. But first output nila, then we can give comments so that they can have better presentation of the data or of the results and analysis. Then I think you will be surprised kung ano-ano siguro yung mga experimental design nila. They will have different experimental designs na pwede din nilang i-share in a group. Sa FB po siguro, they can have a group, and then other groups also can access it, malaman nila kung ano yung inimbestigahan ng isang group. Okay? And what did they learn from that? Ayan po, pwede tayong mag-add din ng heat dun sa balloon. Yan. If I added heat to the balloon, will it rise up? Okay, I can make it float by adding heat dun sa balloon. So, yun po yung isang pwede nilang ma-discover. And also, pwede rin nilang control itong temperature and pressure. Another one. Yun po ulit. Try natin ulit maglagay ng particles. Tapos, can I push it? Yan, pwede po natin i-move to. Will it float kapag tinanggal ko lang yan? Will the balloon float? Tingnan natin. Will it float? Then, pero the particles are not moving. So, I think I can apply heat here. So that the particles will move. Yan, nakakalabas naman yung ibang particles. Can I still open it? Yes. So, yun po. Depende sa gustong experiment or gustong gawin ng mga bata. Pag tinanggal ko ba yan, will the balloon float? Yan. They will be able to answer if it will float or not. Pero medyo patience lang para makita nila kung ano yung result ng kanilang experiment. Yan po. Okay, marami pa yan. Kayong pwedeng i-check. Yan, you have the helium balloon, you have the gas properties, hot air balloon, that they can experiment or they can investigate. Oh. Sorry po. Ilipat ko lang ulit kayo sa PowerPoint. Yan. So, ganun po yung outputs natin. Pag gusto niyo siyang open inquiry, tanggalin lang si questions and then sila yung maglalagay ng questions. Next. Next example is this one. Ito naman po. Ito ulit. I-share ko ulit yung video nito. About
the blue one.
Blue one. Help it, huh?
No. Where's the, oh, down now.
Oh. Double click mo.
Tapos,
Yan na. Tok.
tuk. And then it makes white.
Again, try it. Ano pa?
How about red and blue?
Okay. Let's remove the green. Yeah.
It makes pink.
Pink or purple. Magenta. That is actually magenta.
Magenta. How about blue and red? Ay, hindi pala. Blue and green.
Okay.
Blue. Yes. Remove the red. Only the red. We can move it out. And then blue. Blue and green. It makes blue-green.
Blue-green.
Okay, so you can see there po, kayang-kaya na ng student or ng anak ko, na-discover na niya yung red, green, and blue. When they mix together, you can have white. So, ganun din po sa ating students. Wait lang po ha, check ko lang kung nagkakaroon tayo ng problema. Wait lang po. Okay. So far, so good. Konting ano na lang po. Examples. Yan. Okay, next po natin. Move ko lang po sa next slide here. And then, another video. Pag nakita nyo naman po yung video, makikita nyo na rin kung paano na-move yung sa FET. So, I'll share another video.
How do this move?
Click.
Wait lang po. Okay.
How do this move?
Click.
Click.
Then, try to. Ano gusto mo gawin?
I want to move it. Wow.
What happened? Oh.
The yellow is turning on and off. Look,
Why?
look.
Oh, look.
Look. If I take it out, there's no light. If I take it here, there's some light if I move it.
If it's not moving.
There's no light.
Oh, no! Galing mo talaga!
You see? Ano po sabi niya? If I move it, there's no light. If I move it, there's a light. Yan.
How do this move?
Click.
Click.
Then, try to. Ano gusto mo gawin?
I want to move it. Wow.
What happened? Oh.
The yellow is turning on and off.
Why?
Look.
Yan po. She is now learning electromagnetic induction. So, when can a magnet, pwede nating question dyan, or yung estudyante natin, can a magnet produce electricity? Po, pwede yun.
Oh, look.
Look. If I take it out, there's no light.
If it's not moving.
There's no light.
Oh, galing mo talaga! Very good.
Yeah,
That
so that
is
feeling, siguro po
or electromagnetic induction.
Meron pa.
Meron
So easy.
pa. Is asking for more experiments. Yan. Kaya yun nga po, hindi ko natapos yung presentation ko that time. Dapat tulog siya kung gagawa ko.
Ito, maganda ta.
Here's
Go.
another example.
There's a faucet. Do you want to turn on the water?
Kaya sa ginanahan po talaga siyang mag-investigate, do experiment. Marami-rami po kaming nagawang experiment.
How to turn on it?
Turn it on. Here. Ooh.
Wow. What's happening if we turn the water?
Oh.
What's happening if it stops? And then if it goes, what happened?
What happened? Describe it.
They're all spinning.
So, see, yung sinabi, what happens when I turn on the water? That's already inquiry. That's why I've mentioned the heart of open inquiry really is yung question. Kasi nature po ng tao yung we are curious about something, kaya we ask.
Pag turn off, pag mahina.
It's so slow.
How about the light?
It's so big.
Big, pag malakas.
Wow. Sobrang lakas. Ano pa?
Ayun na.
Ano pang gusto mo experiment?
Pagod ka na eh.
So, nakita niyo pa, ano pa, kahit hinihikab na siya, ano pang gusto mong experiment? Then, si Mami na yung susuko kasi I have to finish my presentation. So, from that po, masasabi ko that our students, if they are really engaged with their investigations, they will love science. Yeah? So, acid and base solutions naman po. Ipi-play ko na po. So, same, open inquiry, no questions are given. You just have to ask them to do questions, experimental design, data, analysis, and conclusions. So, din po to. Kaya lang hindi ko siya na-download. It's only online. So, you can change strong acid, weak acid. And then yan, pwede natin maging indicator sa bulb. And there you can also increase the concentration, and what will happen if you increase the concentration? So yan po, pwede rin acids, pwede rin base. What will happen to the pH level? If nag-increase yung concentration, very obvious yan, makikita po nila agad. But of course, syempre, in the future, we wanted them to develop pa rin yung magagamit po nila yung mga instruments. But for the meantime, let's use simulations to engage them. And we use videos so that they can still learn science. Yan, pwede pong acids, pwedeng base. Okay, check PhET simulation. Sobrang dami po talaga. Okay, next, for biology, naghanap rin po ako sa biology ng PhET. Meron din po sila. Here is membrane channels. Now, do not give them questions. Pwedeng may question, guided. Pag wala, open inquiry. So we have the outputs again, the same. Play ko na lang po. So yan, you can decide, silang magde-decide kung they will place leakage channels, gated channels. There's a membrane. Then you can just bombard it with the particles. And then lagyan po ng gated channels. Yan, may color codes. And then you can also add leakage channels. Yan, wherein yung ibang particles, yung blue particles can pass through the blue one. Yung green naman, sa green siya nagpa-pass. Then they can ask questions. Tapos, since gusto nila malaman yun, they will also do research. So that is an example for biology. Don't worry po, sa biology meron din available ang PhET. Okay, next. Yan, meron din eating and exercise. Ayan. If you just want to know yung diet nila, pwede nila ilagay dyan. I tried it. Sana yung sa akin, I'm 34. So yan. What if I eat, yan, coffee, syempre. Healthy foods only. What if? Yan. So, pwede nyo po i-check dyan. Kung ilang calories per day. And then, kung ano yung kung mag-gain ba tayo ng weight. So, pwede rin po yan. What if I do exercise? Yun lang. 15 minutes run. Jogging, 15 minutes. And nandiyan po yung trend ng calorie per day. And then, I'm expecting to lose weight by 35. Kung ganun yung diet ko, di ba po? So, very applicable ang ating mga simulations. Okay, I think that's the end of my presentation. That's the end of the samples. Now, I will share with you this one. Isaac Newton's self-isolation during the bubonic plague of 1665. It was a time when he discovered differential and integral calculus, when he formulated the universal theory of gravity, when he developed the basis for the 3 laws of motion. So, my isolation or self-isolation, sino po ang guilty sa atin dito? Watching shows, watching K-drama, ordering takeout, playing online games, using video conferencing services, ayan, mga webinars for the first time. Yeah. Pero let's try to teach our students, kahit na wala po tayong classroom, face-to-face discussion, let's try to teach them the nature of science. Let's let them experience what science is and what is its true nature by letting them investigate, by letting them observe, letting them ask questions, do research, do investigation, engage with science and also develop a good attitude towards science learning. They can be motivated. They are eager to learn. And of course, they are packed with skills, comprehension, higher order thinking skills, analytical skills. There are so many skills that they can develop during this period. So Isaac Newton worked toward theories of gravity and optics, but can learn something through scientists because they were engaged. So that's all. Hopefully you have learned something from this webinar. And we are really excited to share with you different techniques to assist you to get your subjects online. Okay, here are the online resources. Okay, thank you very much. If you have questions, here is my email address and my Facebook account. Okay, thank you. Again, thank you, PAPSI, and thank you to our participants for watching this webinar. You can chat your questions kung mayroon pong questions. Thank you very much po. Pag may questions po, chat lang. Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Ara Itaneg Abanyel. I learned a lot about how to use inquiry-based approach and even how to use it for distance learning. Ang cute, meron pang special participation from Maggie, her 5-year-old daughter. So, ikaw po, what did you learn? What is your takeaway from this webinar? Again, congratulations, Dr. Banyel, for that very informative and wonderful presentation. Pa-heart react naman po. Yes, pa-heart react naman po to congratulate our guest speaker, heart react. And wow react na lang po, wow react naman for Maggie. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So, for those who registered, expect to receive the documents tomorrow, July 5, 2020. Thank you everyone for watching. Please keep posted on our FB page, www.fb.com PAPSI page for more webinars. Actually, our next webinar next Saturday is about techniques in creating and engaging PowerPoint presentations. All right, so see you on our next webinar. Goodbye.
Bye.